You ever notice how some people with almost nothing, no big house, no luxury car, no overflowing bank account, seem to laugh louder, sleep deeper, and breathe lighter? Meanwhile, the rich, surrounded by everything, often feel empty inside. Happiness doesn't come from having more, it comes from needing less. And sometimes, those who struggle the most end up discovering the deepest truths. Today, we're going to uncover why so many poor people feel lighter, freer, and more alive, while the wealthy often carry invisible chains. Let's be clear about something right from the start. Yes, money matters. It gives you comfort, safety, freedom to move, the power to choose. No one's saying money isn't important, it is. But what we're talking about here goes deeper than income, deeper than status, deeper than your job title, your bank app, your net worth. It's not about saying money is bad or being rich makes you unhappy. No, that's not it. The real question is, what happens to your soul when you start believing that happiness is found after something? After the success, after the car, after the upgrade. Because here's what often happens to people with more. The more they gain, the more they fear losing it. The more they have, the more they need to protect, maintain, grow, compete, and in the process, they lose their sense of presence, their simplicity, their ability to be with life as it is, without constantly managing it. Now contrast that with someone who has less. Less noise, less stuff, less pressure to maintain a persona. Sometimes in that space of less, something surprising opens up. Gratitude, wonder, joy in small things, a sense of connection to something greater than the material world. Not because they're perfect or enlightened, but because when you're not wrapped in endless control, you start noticing what's always been here. Happiness isn't about how much you hold, it's about how free your hands are. And poor people, not always, but often, they walk through life with open hands because they were never promised control. They were never given the illusion that more equals meaning. And because of that, they don't have to unlearn it. They simply live. From the outside, it looks like the dream. A big house, a closet full of options, a bank account that never blinks at prices, vacations, upgrades, access, applause. But spiritually, it's often heavy. Because when you live in a world where everything can be owned, you start to treat yourself like something to be optimized. You become a project. Your identity becomes a brand. Your value becomes performance. And slowly, without realizing it, your soul starts suffocating under the weight of having to be something. This is where the rich often suffer quietly. It's not because they're bad people. It's because they're trapped in a story that says, when I finally get everything right, then I'll feel whole. But that then never arrives. The goalposts move, the hunger mutates, and no matter how much you earn, you can't buy the feeling of enough, because enough isn't a number, it's a state of being. And spiritually, that's where the poor, or those with less, often have the advantage. Not in money, not in power, but in access to simplicity, in the absence of distraction, in not being flooded with images of status, upgrades, algorithms, expectations. When you have less, there's less to manage, less ego to protect, less future to calculate. You start noticing what's here. You feel the sun on your skin without trying to turn it into content. You listen to someone speak without needing to outshine them. You laugh without worrying if it makes you look silly. You sit in silence, not because it's spiritual, but because it's natural. Sometimes less brings you closer to the present, and the present is where all real joy lives. The rich have to learn how to slow down. The poor are already there, not by choice maybe, but by circumstance. And sometimes, that slowness becomes sacred. It becomes presence, and in presence, everything softens. No one's better, no one's more blessed. But the one who can sit with nothing and still feel whole is carrying a richness no money can match. In the middle of ancient Greece, in the bustling city of Corinth, lived a man who rejected everything society worshipped. His name was Diogenes. He had no home, no possessions, no titles. He slept in a large clay jar near the market, owned only a bowl, which he later threw away when he saw a child drinking water with his hands. To the world, he looked like a beggar. But to those who listened, he was something else. Free. Now across that same land rose a man who had everything. Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, leader of armies, conqueror of nations. And yet the story goes that one day, Alexander came to see Diogenes, curious about the man who seemed to have no fear, no ambition, and no need for anything. He found him lying in the sun, calm, unbothered. Alexander stood before him and said, "I am the great Alexander. Is there anything I can do for you?" Diogenes looked up, barely blinking, and said, "Yes, please move out of my sunlight." That was it. No bowing, just honesty. And the most powerful man in the world stepped back. Later, Alexander reportedly said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Want to know why? Because even the king, even the conqueror of the world could feel it. That man in the dirt, with no roof, no riches, and no name, was richer than him in a way no empire could buy. So why did Alexander, the most powerful man alive, walk away from Diogenes feeling like he was the one missing something? Because deep down, even kings can feel the burden of control. Even the rich, the praised, the successful, they know something's off. They've collected everything the world told them would satisfy them, and yet they still wake up with restlessness in their chest. And it's not because they don't have enough, it's because they've been tricked into believing happiness lives in more. More status, more applause, more achievement, more control. But the more you try to own life, the heavier it becomes. And that's where people with less, sometimes without even trying, start to feel something closer to freedom. And in that space, something begins to rise, something no money can buy, the sense that nothing is missing. Not because you have everything, but because you finally stopped needing everything. Alexander had empires but needed to be remembered. Diogenes had nothing but needed nothing. And that's why the one lying in the sun was the only one who looked free. And in our world today, with noise, pressure, achievement, and expectation, we're still playing out that same dynamic. People chase a lifestyle that ends up owning them. Their happiness becomes conditional. Their peace becomes performative. Their rest becomes earned instead of natural. And slowly, they forget what it's like to be human, to just sit in the sunlight and feel like nothing is missing. We're not saying success is wrong or that money is evil. What we're saying is this: if your sense of joy depends on what's in your hands, you'll always fear dropping it. But if your joy comes from who you are when everything is still, then nothing can take it from you. That's the wealth Diogenes had, and that's what Alexander, despite all he conquered, never truly held. What's the point of building a powerful life if you're too disconnected to feel it? What's the point of luxury if your nervous system is always in survival mode? What's the point of recognition if you don't even recognize yourself anymore? Real wealth isn't about what's stored in your bank. It's about what's alive in your heart when nothing is distracting you. And that's the kind of wealth poor people, or those with less, often feel more easily. Not because they're better, but because their lives aren't cluttered with roles, pressure, and performance. They laugh harder, not because life is easier, but because they're not pretending. They cry openly because they were never taught to hide it. They don't have to unlearn the masks that so many others spend decades peeling off. And sometimes, that simplicity becomes a portal to peace, to presence, to something unshakable, even when life itself shakes. Wealth is having access to yourself. And the poorest man who knows who he is may be the richest of all. So no, money isn't the enemy, and poverty isn't the goal. But don't forget, if your inner world is starved, no amount of outer comfort will feed you. And if your inner world is whole, even a quiet, simple life can feel like everything you ever needed. So build what you want, reach for what inspires you. You're already enough, long before the world ever claps for you.